Hi, this is Isabel. So a lot of people contact me based on their English speaking only limitation to the Swiss market. So this video is all about how to get a job with limited language skills or English speaking only. So the first thing that you need to do is to focus on English speaking jobs. So if you know that the time to learn a language, and this is usually the case, is quite long, and then you're not going to be in a state where you can work in a different language, focus on the English speaking jobs. There's already a lot of opportunities there. I will post the link to job boards where you find those English speaking jobs. So this gives you really a market for you where you don't necessarily need to learn languages. So rather than to say, okay, I'm learning a new language, focus already what's there, and then you can always learn the language at a later stage when you move to Switzerland, and it's going to increase your market potential obviously in the longer run. But for the beginning, see this market of English speaking jobs and focus there. Now what you can do also is focus on your chamber of commerce. So every country has chambers of commerce representing all the different nations. So getting close to your particular chamber of commerce. So if you're British, it's the British Swiss chamber. If you're French, it's the French Swiss chamber, etc. So each nation again has a chamber of commerce in the country where you want to go. So in Switzerland, obviously you would find this chamber of commerce, and then going through their events, their breakfast, lunches, whatever, trainings, you would get into this hub of people who are from the same nation as you, trying to find work in Switzerland, or maybe they already have businesses and they're looking for staff. So you're in the hub where your culture is actually supporting you. So you have a support network, and if I'm, for example, British and I go to Switzerland, I open a business and I belong to the British Swiss Chamber of Commerce, I will be more inclined to hire a British national when I need a resource than to recruit maybe someone else, because I'm trying to support my fellow citizens. So it's a good way also to get into those networks and to potentially get opportunities that way. Number 3, think about freelancing for the expat community. So if you have a job that can easily go online, for example, you're a language teacher, or you do marketing or websites and things like that, you can cater to basically the expat community, English-speaking expat community in Switzerland, and you don't need to worry about French or German at this stage. I mean, most of the expat community that I work with works in English. And I've said this before in videos, where the English-speaking community I find has grown since I started my business. More and more startups now are choosing English as the language, especially if you work with the US. If you're a startup, an innovative startup, you would probably work in English anyways. So you still have businesses that work in the local language. I would say more traditional businesses now. If you're in the tech industry, if you're in a high trendy type of industry, English is the language used, even in the Francophone countries. So that gives you a little bit of an edge if you don't speak the local language. Again, it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to speak the local language. It's usually a plus. But again, if you work in digital, you sell to the international community, you don't need to worry so much about the language skills. So it all depends on what you want to do. Maybe it's also part of the reflection. If you're now in transition and you don't know what kind of work you want to do in Switzerland, think about something maybe where you sell or you cater to the international community. Then you can bypass the local language, or people in the local language speak enough English where they can contact you, which is the case for me, for example. All my communication is in English. Now I do work with Francophone Switzerland and German Switzerland, but the communication we use would be English. So it's not a barrier in me working in a country where there's 3 different languages, because I cater to the English-speaking community. And you can also shape your services and your industry to be in English. And in a way, you're also shaping the community around you, because you're saying, look, I communicate in English. And if people want to understand a little bit more what you do, they would do so using the English language. So you're also influencing the market. So the market will influence you, but you can also influence the market by choosing to do a business in a specific language. So you're shaping also the world around you by making certain decisions. So if you're a great website, let's say you work in web marketing, or you do websites and you only speak English, there's tons of people in Switzerland who speak enough English, even if they're Francophone or German speaking from origin, from birth. They would speak enough English that they can work with you. I mean, all you need to do a website is a few words in English. Then you understand your client needs and you can produce something. It's mostly technical work anyways. For example, I worked with, my first webmaster was Francophone. Of course, I speak French, but in the end, what he was doing was mostly background technical work on my website. So I kind of let him do what he had to do and do the technical building of my website. So this is a typical example where sometimes you think you need the local language, but you can do a lot now in English only. A lot of vendors speak in English. I work with vendors in China sometimes for certain things. So English is really the number one language, even though you live in a country where maybe French is the language used. So it really depends. If you're saying I want to be a baker in Francophone Switzerland, you probably need to speak the local language. But again, if you're in digital or websites, marketing, SEO, all those things, everything is in English anyway, so it's not a big deal. So I just wanted to, again, put a little bit of perspective to what you think is a limitation, where definitely the message is Switzerland is getting also more Anglophone now, with a lot of businesses starting business in English. And French and German are still huge pluses, but they're not completely limiting you to do what you want to do. So I hope this was helpful. I will talk to you soon.